Thank you, Connor. I want to thank Connor and Northeastern SSDP for inviting me out here tonight. SSDP is a great organization and got a lot of excellent young minds involved with that. So, why am I here? I'm here because of reefer madness. For the last 70 years, our government has lied to the public and demonized this plant that we call cannabis. They've brainwashed America. They've put out so much propaganda that people really do believe that marijuana is bad. They've put out all the Just Say No campaign, the This Is Your Brain on Drugs campaign. And it's just totally, year after year, the media has really bought into this. And they've also stigmatized an entire class of society just because they use a safe and effective herb to relax or to medicate. And so they just make people ashamed to smoke marijuana. They make them afraid to smoke it. So they hide and they run around smoking. It's horrible. If that was all they did, that would be bad enough. But they made it illegal. And so they started arresting millions and millions of people, spending billions of dollars on all these private prisons, incarcerating people, treating them like animals. It's pathetic. It's horrible. And because of prohibition, thousands of people a year are killing each other, fighting over the profits made from selling drugs. So it's horrible. Mexico is awash with violence. A lot of our cities, a lot of the violence you hear about, oftentimes it's drug-related. So there's all sorts of violence related to prohibition. Our government won't let anybody research medical marijuana. They lie about marijuana. They prevent research, and they prevent sick and dying patients from getting this safe and effective medicine. And they won't even let our farmers grow hemp. That's how crazy they are. It's just totally crazy, insane, and it's a horrible thing. So that's reefer madness. What we need to do is turn reefer madness into reefer gladness. So you guys are here. You're in on the secret now. You know how great cannabis is, and you know how bad prohibition is. So we want to thank cannabis. We want to rejoice in that. But I don't want to be up here preaching to the choir. I want to preach to the preachers. I want you guys to go out there and let everybody know how great cannabis is and how truly devastating prohibition is. A lot of you are in school right now. So this is what the cannabis curriculum is all about. You get all sorts of assignments, projects, term papers. If you're a grad student, you're doing research projects. You get all these top chances to study something. Why not study cannabis, hemp, or prohibition? There's an infinite number of subjects to choose from. So you can just, doesn't matter what subject you're taking, you can apply it to cannabis, hemp, or prohibition. It's really easy, and we're going to go through a whole lot of them tonight. And this is my model for how we're going to unbrainwash society. And you're at the bottom of the pyramid. You learn something about cannabis and hemp. You tell your friends about it, so they learn about it. Tell your classmates about it. Tell your teachers about it. A lot of them are ignorant. They don't realize how great cannabis is, and they don't realize how bad prohibition is. So we're going to educate our way up. And then I'm going to create a cannabis curriculum clearinghouse, which is going to be a database that people can send all their research results into, and then other people can draw from. So if we have any computer science majors out there, or somebody want to help me create this database, I need some help. So we're going to turn it to reefer gladness. But first we need to understand the plant we're talking about here. I've got a lot of hemp products up here, but you've got marijuana and hemp. But they're both the same plant. They're both cannabis. Marijuana is what you get high from, and it's also a good medicine. It's good for people. Some people use it for religious purposes, some for inspiration, for philosophy, or just to have fun. And if there's 8 to 20% of THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, in the flower, that makes it marijuana. Now, by law, if there's less than 0.3% THC in the flower, that's industrial hemp. And this, you can make all sorts of great products from hemp. Food, fuel, building materials, car parts, but they're both cannabis. So we just have to keep that in mind. And over all the years, there's been all sorts of names for the word cannabis and hemp. And its scientific name is Cannabis sativa L. Sativa is the Latin word for useful. So that you know that the guy that named this plant he understood that cannabis was a great plant. Cannabis is actually derived from the word canvas, because they used to make the sails out of hemp canvas. And hemp was very big in the day of sale. So they have all these names. Indian hemp is what they used to call marijuana because people from the subcontinent of India smoked and used, they got intoxicated from smoking cannabis, so they called it Indian hemp. But then we have got all these scientific names in cannabis sativa, but then during Reefer Madness, they started creating all these other names like devil's lettuce, loco weed, pot, dope, trying to stigmatize society. So we need more study into the etymology of the word cannabis and marijuana and how it's been used by all the different cultures. And you've got like indica. You hear a lot about cannabis, indica and sativa, the different strains of it, and ruderalis. So there's all sorts of branches on the tree of family life. And we've got a lot of history. Hemp has been used for thousands of years by almost every civilization on Earth. And a lot of the great masters, if you're into art history, you can study. They painted their masterpieces on hemp canvas using hemp seed oil-based paint. So that's very cool. You could document that and study that. Hemp, as I mentioned, all the sails were made out of hemp in the 16 and 1700s. All the rope, the cordage on the sailing ships. You can go to Charlestown, the Navy Yard. USS Constitution is there. It's the oldest warship, oldest commissioned warship in the U.S. Navy. And they used 40 tons of hemp rope on old Ironsides. So you can go over there, check it out. They've got a hemp, they got a museum for the Constitution. And they have some hemp making equipment there. So it's really cool. You can study the history. In the Civil War, there's the Battle of the Hemp Bales in Missouri, where the soldiers pushed these hemp bales up a hill in order to win the battle. So that was pretty cool use for hemp. And then during the 1800s, the demand for hemp went down. So the industry, by 1900, the hemp industry was basically dead in America. And a lot of factors, a lot of reasons factored into that. The invention of the steam engine. They didn't need sailing ships anymore. They started using wood for paper instead of hemp. And they also, let's see, we got paper, and cotton was a lot bigger than hemp for fabric. So these other products and technologies surpassed hemp. So by 1900, the hemp industry was basically dead. And then they made it illegal during the 1937 when they made marijuana illegal. But I haven't found any evidence of a conspiracy with Hearst and DuPont. You hear a lot of that from the marijuana activists that say it was a conspiracy to make hemp illegal, and that's why, part of the whole marijuana thing. But I believe they made marijuana illegal as a means of discrimination and social control, and that hemp industry was already so small that they just sort of swept it in with it, and nobody even knew about it, and nobody complained. But we could use some more research into that to really document why, about the demand of hemp and if there was a conspiracy. But then during World War II, the Japanese invaded the Philippines and they took over our source, the world's source of fiber for rope and string. So the government decided, hey, we need to grow hemp again. So they started this Hemp for Victory campaign and they grew 150,000 acres of hemp all throughout the Midwest. And this is a couple soldiers guarding all the hemp seed that was going to be planted. That's enough to grow 350,000 acres. And I don't think they grew all of it, but that's a lot of freaking hemp seed. So the Hemp for Victory campaign, and then after World War II, they basically made hemp illegal again. So we've got a lot of hemp history. If you're into history, there would be a lot of research projects involved with that. And there's also Hemp History Week every year in the May-June time period. So if you want to put on a Hemp History Week event, let me know or go to their website and you can do that. All right, we're in Snell Engineering Center. This is great. So hopefully we have some engineering students here or you're taking classes because hemp needs your help. Thanks to Prohibition, there's been no research and development done on machinery to harvest and process hemp for over 70 years. So we're inventing an entirely new industry from the ground up. All of these products are made in Canada and Europe. We need to start making them here, and we need to start growing hemp here, harvesting it, and processing it. And hemp is a very difficult plant to process. So we need a lot of research, and we need people to understand that and develop new machinery. So that's a lot of good projects for you right there. And also, hemp fiber, hemp grows, it can grow 10 to 12 feet tall. And so it grows really tall and straight. And the bast fiber runs the entire length of the plant. So you can have pieces of fiber 10 feet long. So the the tensile strength is very high. So it's really good for composite materials and things like that. So we need more research into that area. Everybody wants to be green these days. Well, hemp is tremendous. Hemp is the green plant. You can make biodegradable plastic out of it. You can make all sorts of biofuels. You can crush the hemp seeds into hemp seed oil and make diesel fuel out of it. You can compress the stalk. The inner part of the stalk is 70% cellulose. So you can make ethanol out of that. And you can also compress this into pellets for your wood burning stove, which are big up in New England. So you can make 3 different types of fuel out of hemp. You can make car parts. A lot of the automakers are turning green now, so they're making molded car parts out of hemp, which is really great. And you can make, of course, tree-free paper out of hemp. So we've got a lot of different uses. Hemp, as I mentioned, it grows really tall, so it blocks out competing weeds. So you don't need herbicides. And you can make paints and oils and finishes, so we don't have to use petroleum. And it's good for phytoremediation. It actually draws poisons and toxins out of the soil and cleans the soil. So we could use hemp to clean up polluted land. So there's all sorts of different areas of recycling, and recycling because the paper, hemp paper, you can recycle it many more times than wood paper. It's a lot better for that. So there's a lot of different projects that you can choose relating to hemp and its environmental uses. If you're in architecture or construction, you can literally build an entire house out of hemp. This is a piece of hemp concrete. This is the hemp herds mixed with sand, lime, and water. And it makes a really nice, breathable concrete that's fire resistant. Termites don't like it. And so it's a great product. And it's lightweight, and it's a great insulator. So you've got hemp concrete. You've got hemp particle board, which is stronger and more flexible than wood particle board. You can make hemp composite shingles, insulation, carpet, draperies. So you really can make an entire house out of hemp, and you can heat it too with diesel fuel or the pellets for your wood burning stove. So if you're an architecture major, I challenge you to design and build a hemp house. Or if you're in construction, build one. It's really getting bigger. They're building a lot of hemp houses in buildings, warehouses in England, and that's coming into America and Canada. So hemp concrete is going to be the really big thing. So if you're into nutrition and want to be healthy and live healthy, hemp is it. Hemp is the new superfood, the humble hemp seed. It's chock full of fiber, protein, vitamins, a lot of essential minerals and trace elements. And it's very high in omega-3 and omega-6 essential fatty acids. So you always hear on TV, oh, eat fish to get your your essential fatty acids. Well, you don't have to. Eat hemp. It's better for you, and it's better for the fish. So it's great. It's cholesterol-free. It's gluten-free. And a lot of people can't eat gluten, and there are no known allergies to hemp foods. There's a lot of people that are lactose intolerant or can't eat peanuts. But there are no known allergies to hemp foods. And why is that? I don't know, but I need your help to find out. So somebody do a research project and show why that is. And there's all sorts of great hemp products out there. Chocolate hemp milk. We've got some hemp protein powder, which is great. Shelled hemp seed, which is awesome. It tastes great. Flour, ice cream, power bars. It's just amazing. All these new hemp foods, pretzels, they're coming out. It's great. And so there's a lot of hemp foods out there. If you're into dermatology or body care, you can study how hemp seed oil helps your skin. The essential fatty acids act as emollients to moisturize and heal your skin. It's really great for your hair. And there's all sorts of great products. You've got lip balm. We've got some lip balm here today. And Dr. Bronner's soap. They do a lot to Dr. Bronner's to support the hemp industry. So support them by buying their soap. There's shampoo. And there's also cannabis root products. This is the root of a cannabis plant. And the root itself is really good. It's medicinal. It's good for scrapes and scratches and things like that. So Hempease is a really good product. So there's all these great hemp products for your body and for your skin. So we can, if you're interested in that area, you can look into that. But we also need to understand the economics of hemp. Economics is a very hard subject. It can be very boring. So why not study the economics of hemp? And we can look at the farmers. It's what I call a catch 422. It's very difficult because we're creating an entire industry from the ground up. And farmers are very conservative, so they won't grow a crop unless there's a demand for it. But how can there be a demand for it if there's no products out there? It's like a chicken and the egg problem. And we're growing the whole industry slowly in Canada. But we need to study that. We need to understand the economies of scale that we were talking about with Connor earlier. The prices of hemp products is pretty high right now, and a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to buy that because it's too expensive. The reason is because they're growing so little hemp that the unit price is a lot higher. We need to be growing, and they're only growing like 30 or 40,000 acres of hemp in Canada right now, whereas they grow like 300 or 400 million acres of corn, cotton, soy, and wheat. It's just an incredible amount more, so the unit price is so much lower for those products. But what would the price of hemp be if we were growing 5 million acres of hemp or 10 million acres? The prices would really plummet, and that would be good for the consumer. So we need to understand that. We need to look at the multiplier effect. I think that hemp can actually help revitalize rural America. If we could get farmers to grow this product, grow hemp, and then they harvest it and process it locally, process it into products that they can use locally. That money keeps getting spent over and over again locally, creating a multiplier effect. So that way they don't have to import things, and they're not sending stuff across the planet. They're growing it and using it right there. And we can create self-sustaining communities using hemp to make all of these products. And so I think that's something that could really be looked at and understood and taken advantage of. So we've got a lot of young, bright minds, and everybody wants to make their $1 billion. Well, cannabis hemp is it. If you ever wanted to get in on the ground floor of anything, this industry is it. It's just expanding. Hemp is really growing fast. The whole medical marijuana industry and the legalization industries are just exploding in all the related things like real estate, paraphernalia, smoking devices, grow lights, fertilizers. All of these different areas are really expanding. But also, we need people to invent new hemp products. And there's all sorts of different things you can invent. But the problem is, this is a war. It is the war on drugs, and the deck is stacked against us. The government is doing everything they can to stop us. It goes back to that whole reefer madness thing. So, being a war, the first people over the hill, a lot of the times, are the first casualties. And I've seen a lot of people, really great people, come and go over the last 20 years, starting companies and going out of business. So if you do go into business, it's going to be very hard. So you have to have a good business plan and be very conservative. But you can make your money, and it is growing. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be hard, but it's doable. CBD, medicinal hemp. This is a relatively new thing that probably, has everybody heard about CBD, or a lot of people? So you can't get high on it. It's actually, and it's pretty neat because the hemp doesn't have any THC in it. It's got a lot of CBD. So that's actually a field of medicine that they're cutting down. Sadly, the last 10 or 15 years in Canada, the whole hemp industry, they haven't been using the flowers at all. They just would cut them off and plow them back into the soil, which is like sad in a way because that's great medicine. And it's so good for so many different things. And it doesn't get you high. So our opponents can't say, oh, it's bad, and it helps children with epilepsy. So it's like, it's a really, it's a hard argument to be against CBD. So it's a great thing, and it's really growing. That whole part of the business is really growing big. So all of these last few slides, that's why I call hemp the green buffalo, because you can use it to make so many products. Native Americans use the entire buffalo to survive, hair, snoot, balls, and all. And you can use the entire cannabis plant to make so many essential products. That's why I call it the green buffalo. So, now we're going to talk about medical marijuana a little bit. And again, we'll start with the history. Like hemp, medical marijuana, or they didn't call it marijuana back there, but medicinal cannabis has been used for thousands and thousands of years. It started in China and Asia and made its way around the planet. They recently found a mummified body in the Gobi Desert, 2,700 years old. It was buried with 2 pounds of cannabis, which is awesome, He's a pretty lucky guy. So we need to figure out, what was this person? Was he a shaman? Was he a medical medicine man? What were they using that for? But the fact is they were using it. So they used it for thousands of years. And then in the 1700s, we know that they were using hemp seed oil and cannabis root for skin ailments. And in the 1800s, 1830s, this Irish doctor, William O'Shaughnessy, he was practicing in India. So we're going back to India again, looking at the Indian hemp. And he noticed that they were using it for all sorts of things, for epilepsy, for pain, for nausea. And he was like, wow, this is a great medicine. So he took that knowledge, he documented it all, and took it back to England, where it became wildly successful and popular. And by 1900, there were hundreds of medicines on the market with cannabis in it. And they, from Eli Lilly, mainstream pharmaceutical companies were using cannabis. It was huge. Even Queen Victoria was prescribed cannabis. But starting in the early 1900s, the use of cannabis in medicine started to go down. So we need to understand why. That would be a good project. And one reason that could be is it was hard to get a standardized dose. You have a cannabis flower with all these cannabinoids. They didn't know what THC was back then. They didn't know what CBD was. So it was very hard to come up with a consistent dosage for the same effect. And also, this is when the whole alcohol temperance movement was gaining traction. So they swept marijuana or cannabis in with the anti-alcohol group, and then the Reefer Madness started. In 1937, they railroaded the Marijuana Tax Act through Congress. So if you want to study a real travesty of justice and legislation, study the Marijuana Tax Act and look at the testimony and see how lopsided it was and how little Congress argued against it. So it was a great case study. And then in 1942, they actually took cannabis out of the pharmacopoeia, which is a book of all the used medicines. They just took it right out. We need to put it back in. I need your help to put it back in the pharmacopoeia. So we have medical history. Cannabis, one doctor calls cannabis the synergistic shotgun because it does so much. It's great for nausea. It helps fractures heal faster. It's amazing. It's great for traumatic brain injury and stroke if you're in a car wreck. And actually it would be very good for football players with concussions. And hopefully one day they'll have vaporizers on the sideline, which would be cool. But it's great for OCD. It's great for MS. It's great for depression, glaucoma. It's amazing. Epilepsy. It's a bronchodilator. It's good for asthma. That sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. It helps with asthma. And it's very good for post-traumatic stress disorder, which a lot of our veterans have. So if you care about our veterans, and I know you do, you'll work with them and the VA and make sure they have access to this safe and effective medicine. We've got a lot of work in that area. If you're into biology or chemistry, you could study the cannabinoids. Study the endocannabinoid system. It's a literal link between your mind and body. You have these cannabinoid receptors all throughout your body, and cannabis links up with them and does different things. So we need to understand that. A company in Marblehead recently sequenced the cannabis genome. So we've got all this data. If you're into the genome thing, you could study that. It would be awesome. And there are at least 50 cannabinoids in the cannabis flower. You know, everybody knows about THC. We know about CBD. There's all sorts of other cannabinoids. We need to study all of them. And if you discover a new cannabinoid, you get to name it. It's like discovering a star. So you could call it tetrahydrocannabinol Connor or something like that. Whatever you want, but it would be fun. So discover your own cannabinoid. Now this is a new slide that I just made a couple days ago. Pediatric and geriatric studies. So we got young people and old people. They're both using more and more cannabis. The young people, it's more controversial because it's like, oh, we don't want our kids smoking marijuana. That's horrible. But of course, they're not necessarily smoking marijuana, but they are using it to fight all sorts of different diseases like autism, epilepsy, leukemia. This young girl in the lower left, Michaela, has leukemia, and she's using high THC oil, and she's been fighting that. And it's great for special needs kids. It's awesome. And what this is really is a choice for all these groups, and for us too. You can either choose to use a safe and effective medicine, or you can choose to take all these pharmaceuticals and pills that your doctors prescribe you. So you've got young people children using cannabis, but you also have a lot of older people. They're finding out how great it is. It's good for Parkinson's, it's good for Alzheimer's, arthritis, and grandmas, actually, and old people vote. So we need to persuade and educate the senior citizens and get them on our side, because they're the ones that really have the political clout and the say-so. And it's so good for them, and it's so therapeutic, and it can be cheap. So it's, it's a win-win-win. So nursing, pre-med, public health. A lot of our opponents say, oh, you shouldn't be smoking marijuana. That's no way to take your medicine. That's just not right. Well, actually, for a lot of people, smoking marijuana is perfectly fine for medication. But you don't have to smoke it. You can vaporize it. I don't know if anybody's vaporized here. Probably not. But that's a great way, without burning it. It's a lot smoother. You can juice it. Whole cannabis juicing is very big now, where it has no psychoactive effect, but it's very therapeutic. You can make tinctures out of it. You can eat it. You can drink it. It's amazing. So let's do a study. Which delivery system works best for which ailment? That would be great to figure out. Or we can talk about how safe it is. There is no lethal dose to marijuana. You cannot smoke yourself to death. And I know some people that have tried, and that's a good thing. But seriously, though, a lot of people do, unfortunately, drink themselves to death every year or die on OxyContin, on aspirin, on other pharmaceuticals and narcotics. And it's really, really sad. So we have to push the point that cannabis is safe. And in states, they just came out with a study, states with medical marijuana laws have much lower overdose deaths from OxyContin and pharmaceuticals. So like thousands of people are being saved because they're using medical marijuana. We need to let people know that. That's a no-brainer once people realize that. And you always hear so much about the hard drug epidemic. Well, marijuana is a gateway away from that. And again, our opponents, all the time, they say marijuana is a gateway drug. One puff and boom, the next day you're doing heroin. But actually, I agree, it's a gateway drug, but it's a gateway away from narcotics, a gateway away from pharmaceuticals and alcohol. It helped me quit alcohol. It helped me quit cigarettes. It's awesome. I love my cannabis. So it's a reverse gateway. And that's another thing. We need to let your doctor know if it's making you improving the quality of your life. Tell your doctor, because doctors, believe it, they're ignorant and they're brainwashed just like everybody else. I've had a couple doctors that really are really stupid. And I told them they're heartless. But they have to have compassion. It's very important. So we got to let them know. Because a lot of people self-medicate it. They don't even realize it. They might have a hippie speedball in the morning, a joint and a cup of coffee, and then go to work or go to school, and they don't even, they don't realize that they're medicating, but they are. And it's so good for depression, ADHD, and anxiety. So there's a lot of good uses for it. We need to understand that. Like we had the economics of hemp, we got the economics of prohibition. How much could be saved if society switched to cannabis medicines? The pharmaceutical companies spend billions of dollars researching all of these hardcore pharmaceuticals that have side effects, the laundry list longer than my arm. You see these commercials, and by the end of the commercial, you don't even know what they're talking about. You're just afraid that you're going to get all of these bad things. You're not even sure what they're curing, but you know you don't want to take that drug. So how much could be saved if people were growing and using marijuana? In Israel, they have a very good medical marijuana program. They provide high-grade pharmaceutical cannabis for $15 an ounce. So that's 50 cents a gram. That's pretty damn cheap. That's how much it costs to grow. That is at cost, basically, $15 an ounce. So that's how much it should cost for the really, really goody good. So how much could be saved if we were doing that? But we have a lot of roadblocks in our way. This is another catch-422. The government is just doing everything they can to stifle the medical marijuana industry. They don't allow dispensaries to deduct their business expense. They don't give them access to capital. They can't get loans. They can't process credit card transactions. Imagine running a business where you couldn't get a loan, can't deduct expenses, and you can't use credit cards. It's just insane. But despite their best efforts, medical marijuana industry is still exploding in Colorado and California. So they can't stop it. The camel's nose is under the tent. And so we need to realize these Catch 422 roadblocks and work our way around them. We need to look at the custody industry. How much is being wasted, arresting, incarcerating, processing, putting on parole, all of these nonviolent cannabis users. It's billions of dollars. The privatized industrial complex, prison industrial complex is out of control, and we need to rein it in. And that's why we need to legalize all drugs, not just cannabis. And that's what SSDP is for, is sensible drug policy. So we need to end prohibition. Prohibition is the problem. We need to look at civil rights. We need to fight for our right to light up at work if you need to. If it's your medicine, and as long as you're not impaired, theoretically you should be able to use cannabis before work without a problem, as long as you're not impaired. That's the key. Impairment. People can take other pharmaceuticals before work. You should be able to use cannabis. And one of the reasons, what we have to understand is the asymptotic effect. This is what Dr. Grinspoon, Lester Grinspoon, explained to me once, and he's been studying cannabis for like 40 years. If you smoke once a month or so, very infrequently, you get really, really high. You're like a cheap date, right? But if you smoke every day, you're a lot less impaired. You're just more mellow. So you're not, in a lot of cases, you're not impaired. But we have to understand that asymptotic effect, especially as it relates to impairment in driving. Because just because you have like 5 nanograms per milliliter of THC in your bloodstream does not mean you're impaired. So we can't have laws like that. We have to base it on impairment. A lot of work in that area. Public policy. Our government calls marijuana a Schedule I narcotic, which by definition means it has a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medical use, and lack of safety. So all 3 of those are total bullshit. It's amazing. But they still classify it as Schedule I, which means they do not allow research. And there's people that are dying to do research, and they say, let us do research. And they say, no. And we say, why? They say, because there's no research. So their circular logic is really jerking patients around, and we need to fight back. We need to, fortunately, there is a lot of research going on in other countries and in America that's not funded by the government. So we're proving that it's a safe and effective thing. We need to put THC back into healthcare. Now, I don't know why, but I just like the way that sounds. So, and it just happens to be right in the middle of it. We need to restart the Investigational New Drug Program. This is a program where they provide cannabis to patients, and those are 2 of the 4 remaining live patients. It used to be like 12 or 14 people, but all the rest of them passed away. They get 300 marijuana cigarettes every month from the government, and those are big tin containers that they get their pot in. But unfortunately, this is the worst stems and seeds crap you've ever seen grown in a farm down in Mississippi, and they just package this crap up and send it to them and say, okay, good luck. Fortunately, these guys are activists, and they're fighting back, rubbing our government's nose in it. But we need to restart that program. We need patients access to good pharmaceutical-grade cannabis. We need to study political science. We need to understand, why can you go to Holland and go to Amsterdam, to any number of coffee shops, and buy high-grade marijuana and hashish, sit down and smoke it in perfect peace and quiet? Whereas in countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, China, they execute people for smuggling drugs. It's insane. So we need to study those 2 political climates. And we need to look like, even in America, why is Texas so much more conservative than California? Or why is Northern California so much more liberal than Southern California? We need to look at the racial disparity in enforcement. Minorities and poor people are arrested in a way higher percentage than their percentage in the population, or the percentage of drug use. So it's just not fair, and it is a means of social control, prohibition. And we need to document that, and we need to show people. And so we cannot tolerate intolerance. If you remember anything, try to remember that. So, legal studies. Maybe we have a legal law student in here. We need somebody to write the legal brief, the argument that proves that prohibition is unconstitutional And then we have to get the Supreme Court to agree with us. And boom, prohibition's over. It's that easy. So start working on that. But we've got to do it somehow. And the judges, the legal system is against us. For some reason, they keep enforcing all these stupid drug laws. But we need to convince them. So that's a good way to do it. Another good way is lobbying. There's all sorts of lobbying groups out there. Vote Hemp, if you're into hemp. SSDP is a great group. LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. That's a lot of former policemen who are against prohibition, obviously. So they're very well respected. People listen to ex-cops when they're out there talking because they know what they're talking about. And of course, NORML. So there's all these different groups that you can be involved with. We need to understand the sociology. Is there going to be a watershed event, or is society going to have its aha moment and just say, oh, dang, prohibition's wrong. It's crazy. What were we thinking all these years? Or is it going to be more of a incremental, baby step by step, which is probably more likely. And there are all these different baby steps. Just you guys coming here tonight, it was a big baby step. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we have all these different things. Massachusetts has decriminalized it. We've got a medical marijuana law. We're moving step by step towards legalization. So we are the tip of the spear. You guys are the tip of the spear. We're the very beginning of the movement. It's amazing how few people realize this, and we need people like Connor and Sarah helping to be the tip of the spear. We're going to burst the bubble of prohibition, releasing the prisoners, healing our bodies, cleaning our environment, and strengthening our economy. So, and it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something. And don't get mad at other people if they're not doing as much as you want them to, because as long as they're doing something, then that's a baby step forward against prohibition. And this is a marathon and not a sprint. This whole brainwashing has gone on for 70 years. It's not going to end overnight. And even if they legalize it, even in Colorado, there's a lot of struggles. So it's going to be a long-term struggle. So I hope you're in it for the long term. Women and gender studies. This is a great area to research. Back during Reefer Madness days, they used women to objectify them and say, if you smoke marijuana, all these bad things are going to happen. But then, during World War II, women were used in the factories processing hemp fiber. So that actually kick-started the women's movement, which is cool. And now we have a lot of strong women in the movement that are pushing forward, the Stiletto Stoners, the NORML Women's Alliance, Grandmas for Ganja. And people listen to women, so we need you out there helping us. And we need people to study this and document their role in cannabis reform. If you're into music, theater studies, there's a lot of great areas here that you could study or focus on. You could look at music. Everybody knows that Willie Nelson and Bob Marley smoked a lot of pot and everything, but how did marijuana affect all genres of music and different artists? Or you could look at theater studies and TV. That used to be everybody on television that smoked marijuana was like this Jeff Spicoli type straight out of Fast Times and Ridgemont High. But now they have more, clean-cut people like on 6 Feet Under or Bored to Death smoking pot just as a matter of course. It's no big deal. It's more accepted. And even on The Family Guy, Brian smokes pot, and he's like the most responsible one in the whole family. So I think that's a good statement. And so we need to study that. But we also, if we have anybody in theater group, or if you want to put on a play, you can put on The Marijuana Logs is a really good play, or a musical. There's a couple in Cambridge that wrote the Caitlin County Hemp Wars. It's a musical about a family trying to save their farm by growing hemp. It's a great story. We've got a lot of great songs. So if you want to put that musical on, they would come and help you produce it. So hopefully somebody will want to do that. If we have anybody, if you like to draw, or if you're into gaming, why not create a hemp superhero? He or she could run around planting hemp everywhere, fighting prohibition. That would be a great thing. Or you could create a game or create a cannabis app. There's an app for that, and I'm sure there's a lot of cannabis apps already. So, do some drawing. And this is my puzzle. This is the cannabis conundrum. And if you solve it, you get $1. But this is a huge fight, but it seems like the movement is not moving forward as fast as it should. And it's because everybody's pulling in their own way. Like hemp farmers want to grow hemp, but they definitely don't want marijuana to be legal. Medical people, medical marijuana people, they want their medicine. So they don't necessarily want it to be legal either. And hemp farmers, a lot of them don't even care about medical marijuana either. So they're going in two different ways. Within the activist community, we fight. You know, within groups, between groups, you have what I call the tie-dyes versus the coat and ties. Tie-dyes are some of the older hippie types. And then you got the new activists that are real more straight-laced. They don't want to have anything to do with the hippies. But it's like, we can't throw the hippie out with the bathwater. We have to use them all together. We have to use them. Everybody has to work together to solve this problem. I just tried that one. Hippie, yeah. But it's also another catch 422, the institutionalized hypocrisy. Why parents and teachers, people can't come out of the closet. They can't admit that they smoke marijuana because they might lose custody of their children, they might lose their job, in some instances they might even get arrested. So they have to stay in the closet. Parents have trouble, being honest with their children, and so it's this really tough thing. And then you have growers and dealers that don't necessarily want it to be legal because they're making a lot of money because of prohibition. But once you do legalize it, dealers become providers. Growers become caretakers. It sounds a lot better. And you bring them above board. They pay taxes, create jobs, create legal jobs. It's a win-win situation. So we need to all work together. And one way that we can help solve this issue is through communication. They have owned the debate for the last 80 years. The media has been bought and sold. We need to take the debate to them. Hold debates, try to get a prohibitionist to debate you. First of all, that's hard to do because they can't really logically argue for prohibition. It just doesn't make sense. But we need to take the debate to them. We need to go on talk radio, write letters to the editors, come out of the cannabis closet. I equate it to the gay and lesbian struggle of coming out of the closet. That makes you stronger in numbers. Hey, thanks, man. So, stand up, be counted, be a proud cannabis consumer. Let people know. And the answer, the $20 answer to the question of why do they arrest thousands of people a year, hundreds of thousands of people? Why are thousands of people murdered every year? Why can't patients get their medicine? And why can't farmers grow hemp? It's the prohibition, stupid. Prohibition is the key concept that we have to keep in mind. And that's why marijuana is illegal, and that's why we need to work to legalize it. So I just want to end with this really short poem. It's a really bad poem, but I put it together so I don't care. C is for cannabis. C is for the cannabinoids that heal us. A is for the architecture that shields us. N is for hemp's nutritious foods, soaps, and lotions. N is for innovative products that keep us in motion. A is for the arts that entertain us. B is for the biofuels that sustain us. I is informing others of hemp's utility. S means shopping can end prohibition's futility. H is hemp and cordage sailing through history. E is for hemp's environmental efficiency. M is the economic multiplier to optimize. And P is for the politics needed to legalize. Thank you very much. That's the ABCs of the cannabis curriculum.